How's it going, everybody? Technical difficulties over here. Okay, now we're good. There we go. Welcome, anybody here for the first time tonight? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome back to everybody else. I'd like to begin class by asking you to talk to each other in service of a core principle in Buddhism, which is developing community. There's three core principles, what we call the three refuges. One is in Buddha, the potential of waking up and being wise and compassionate in our own lives. And the second is the Dharma, understanding reality, nature as it is, free from delusions and deluded conditioning, actually seeing and responding wisely to life. And the third is community. And the perspective is that we can't really do it alone. It's a relational practice. We need support. We need encouragement. We need challenges. We need people to practice with. And so I like to begin class by asking you to talk to each other so that if you come here regularly, you start to get to know people and develop some community. And it's not just a kind of place to listen and meditate, but to actually develop some connections. I'm going to talk about a few different things tonight. I just got back from a retreat. I was on retreat last week, and some reflections from the retreat that I'll share with you. And one of the topics that I'm going to talk about tonight is making the Dharma, making meditation and the Eightfold Path, the practices of Buddhism, a priority, and reflecting on how much of a priority am I making my mindfulness and my kindness and generosity and compassion and kindness and all of these principles that are good ideas, but how much of a priority am I making them in my life? So some of you are new. I know some people are here for the first time, maybe some people joining us at home for the first time. So maybe it's not a priority for you at all yet, and you're just getting interested and you're not sure whether it's even something worth prioritizing. That's okay if that's true for you. But many people have been part of this community for a long time. I've been teaching this Monday night class for over 20 years, every single Monday. And so some of you have been coming for a long time. What kind of place of priority do you make it in your life? Do you get on retreats? Do you sit daily or regularly? Do you come to classes? Do you go to other groups other than my groups? Do you read the books? Are you studying? Are you practicing? When you look at your life's energy and the ways that we only have so much energy in life, and we have to prioritize, like, okay, I need to work for a living and I have these duties and these responsibilities. How much of our time and energy are we making spiritual practice, awakening practice, a priority in our life? That's the question for you to discuss with each other. And don't use it as like a judgment of like, I'm a loser, I hardly ever meditate. Or don't puff yourself up about it. It's the number one priority. I'm mindful all of the time. But just an honest sharing of like, at this point, and as we reflect, anybody that's been practicing for a long time, I can admit that for myself, there's been times in the past where it was much more of a priority, and I was getting on more retreats, and I was sitting longer, and it felt like it was, up there on my time and energy list, and these days, not as strong of a practice as it once was, not as much of our priority, and seeing the sort of ebbs and flows over the years of practice, if it's something that you're taking on as a long-term endeavor. So small groups, what priority does the Dharma take in your life at this point? So at home, I'll put you in breakout rooms, and in the room, just talk to some people you don't know. That's how you meet people. I'll offer some meditation instructions, beginning with inviting you to find a way to sit that's upright, relaxed, finding a posture that feels sustainable, allowing your eyes to be closed. Bringing our attention inward into the body. Settling into the posture and releasing any unnecessary tension, softening the brow, the eyes, the jaw. Releasing the shoulders, the chest, the belly, so that the body is upright without being rigid or stiff. And reflecting for a moment on your aspiration, your intention, reminding yourself of why you practice meditation, why you're interested, why you're on the path. Whether it's a personal aspiration to decrease, alleviate suffering in your own life, or it's more altruistic for the benefit of all sentient beings. Just remembering, reminding. And with that aspiration, whatever it is, establishing an intention to be kind, to be patient, to be friendly, accepting of yourself just as you are. And spending the first few minutes practicing mindfulness of the body breathing, mindfulness of the breath. Allowing the other sense doors to recede to the background, allowing the thoughts to recede to the background, bringing the sensations of the breath to the front, to the foreground of your attention. We're not trying to stop the ears from hearing, or the tongue from tasting, or the mind from thinking. But we are trying to ignore the mind, let the thoughts be in the background, and give our full attention to the body. First foundation of mindfulness. The Buddha's initial meditation instructions were quite straightforward and simple, something like, breathing in, know that you're breathing in. Breathing out, know that you're breathing out. So we use the breath as the focus, as the object of awareness. Giving priority to the sensations of the breath, rather than our thoughts of future and past, our plans and memories. Thinking is not the priority right now. Feeling is. Feel the breath. Each time the attention leaves the breath, goes back into thinking or somewhere else, just acknowledge it, thinking again or hearing, and then gently return. The practice of kindness and patience, applying to how it is that we come back to the breath. Come back in a friendly way, not a judgment, nothing to stress about, just return. Bring the attention back to the breath over and over as many times as you need to. Keep disengaging from the mind. Keep coming back to the body. If you're new to this kind of practice, or even if you've been practicing for a while, continuing to use the breath as the focus, building the concentration, gathering the attention, learning to disengage and ignore the mind. Very important initial skill. The Buddha's instructions continued from the breath awareness to embodied awareness, the full body, becoming aware of this physical form that we are, that we live in, the sensations of the hands and feet and arms and legs, front and back, top and bottom. Aware that this body is covered in skin and hair, covering muscles and organs and bones. Becoming aware of the anatomy of the body. The sensation of the breath as the lungs breathe all by themselves. The nervous system feels all by itself. Digestive system, all of the physical systems of the body, becoming mindful. Becoming mindful of the posture, sitting, feels like this. And as we become more inclusive, not the narrow focus on the breath, but a mindfulness that is inclusive of the sense doors of sound and smell, taste, sight, including emotion and thought, the heart, the mind, the whole human experience. In the beginning, we learn to ignore the mind, and then we turn towards it, include it. Thoughts arising and passing. Moods, attitudes, emotions. And the second task, skill, part of the practice, is to investigate the feeling tone. What is being perceived as pleasant in your body right now, in your heart, in your mind? What is being experienced, perceived as unpleasant? Any discomfort, pain, agitation? And what is being experienced as neutral, neither pleasant nor unpleasant. Turning towards bringing awareness to the feeling tone. This is where we see the tendency to crave for pleasure, to resist pain, to ignore neutrality. This is where we see how most of our suffering is created in our relationship to what we're feeling, the pleasant, the unpleasant, the neutral. So in a simple way, you can inquire, you can ask yourself, what am I paying attention to right now? Where's my attention? If it's in a thought, that's okay. Thinking, what does this thought feel like? Is it a pleasant thought? Or unpleasant or neutral? Or if you're still paying attention to your breath, what's this in-breath or this exhale feel like? Is that pleasant or unpleasant or neutral? What's happening? What are we paying attention to? And how does it feel? Mindfulness is the intervention where we learn to see clearly what's happening and how it feels, and to change our relationship rather than pushing away the pain, learning to tolerate it, to accept it, to care about it, developing compassion as the outcome of mindfulness. Changing our relationship to the tendency to chase pleasure, to cling, to get attached, to crave for life to be pleasant all of the time. Waking up to the impermanent nature of pleasure, learning to let go. To respond with non-attached appreciation rather than clinging and craving. Before I jump into my topic, my talk, any questions about the meditation instructions? Does the guidance make sense? Any questions about how to work with the experience that you have as you attempt to be present and friendly and investigating not only what's happening, but also how it feels, the feeling tone, please?
What does it mean to return to your breath in a friendly way?
Could you hear that at home? Question is, what does it mean to return to the object of awareness, the breath, in that instruction in a friendly way? I don't know, I feel like I can answer it. My internal experience of that is that especially in early years of meditation, I feel like I would kind of criticize myself internally of like, go back to the breath, idiot. Quit thinking about other shit. Like there was that inner critic, that inner tyrant voice for me was very strong and came into meditation. And it wasn't a gentle like, oh, you've been thinking, it's okay, come back to the breath. It was like, fucking loser. You're not even meditating, you're fucking fantasizing. Internal tyrant, critical voice. And that for me, it took a intentional and encouragement of like, oh, actually, it's okay to just be kind and to just be like, oh, thinking again, planning again, return to the breath. It's okay. It's sometimes the image is used of like if you're training a puppy, like you're training your mind, and in even like training a puppy is a good of like come, sit, stay, right? And when the puppy wanders off, hopefully you don't yell at him, be like, you fucking idiot puppy. And hopefully you don't hit your puppy and you don't scold it too much. You gently say, no, come back over here. And, go out the dog door, pee on the, newspaper or whatever it is, gently training the puppy rather than scolding it. Likewise, internally, rather than scolding ourselves or judging ourselves or feeling like a failure or feel, critical, of gently being like this. And it's one of the good things about community, Sangha, hearing the instructions of knowing that everybody's attention wanders. It's not a failure. It's just part of the practice to return. But how we return, we're either building an internal friendliness or we can be building an internal, kind of feeding the judging mind or the critical mind. So I don't know if it's just that intention, that kind of inner friend. And when I heard, I didn't really know how to be kind. I heard that sort of return with kindness in my early years of meditation. I didn't really know how to do it, but I was like, okay, what? It's not being critical. I know that. So how do I just come back with less judgment, with less, critical internal voice? Please.
I really like that question, and if it's okay, I just want to share one way that I can go back to my breath.
Sure. Say it loud enough so we can hear you.
I speak as the observer for a second, or I think of it as like, if I overthink a lot, I go, oh, she must be really thinking a lot today. Or if I'm really tired and I want to quit or something, I go like, oh, she must be feeling tired, I'll make sure to rest after this or something. But so it kind of allows me to detach from
Yeah.
that.
I like that. For those of you at home that couldn't hear her, she was saying like almost making the observer or that part of the mind that is awareness of relating to the self as like someone else, of like, it's okay, like she's tired, or and kind of being friendly as though you're being friendly to someone else, and kind of but doing that to ourselves, making it okay, yeah. Any other meditation instruction questions? Anybody at home, you can raise your hand with the I don't know, somewhere in there.
Hal has his hand up.
Oh,
Yes.
okay, go ahead, Hal.
I mean, now becoming familiar with your instructions, from coming for a few months. I'm sort of a mantra guy, though, and it does really seem to help me to focus my mind or not let my mind wander too much. So, what do you have to say about that?
Could you hear in the room? the question or the comment, the question is about mantras as part of a practice to focus the mind and not let it wander too much. Mantras have their place. Repeating phrases have their place. In Buddhism, we do that with the heart practices, the loving kindness, as you repeat the loving kindness phrases, or the forgiveness phrases, or the compassion phrases, or the equanimity phrases, or appreciation. Like, so there's several different Buddhist practices that are repetition of phrases that would be similar. Mantras are usually a bit shorter than the kind of phrases that we do in Buddhism. Sometimes mantras are just a couple of words or a sentence. Some of the phrases that we do are several sentences in the loving kindness practice. But it has a place, and the function of mantra is similar to using the breath. Something to gather the attention, to allow us to ignore the mind or replace the thoughts, like you're saying, kind of like get focused on those phrases rather than the planning and remembering tendencies. So it has its place. From a Buddhist perspective, you're familiar how with the Eightfold Path. So as far as the Eightfold Path, there's two sections which are about meditation. There's mindfulness, the 4 foundations of mindfulness, and then there's concentration. So 7th is mindfulness, 8th is concentration. Mantra and using the breath as the primary focus are technically 8th factor of the path. Concentration, use the mantra, ignore everything else, use the mantra, use the breath, ignore everything else. You're doing the concentration part, the 8th factor of the Eightfold Path. It's in there, it's part of the teachings, it's a necessary part of the teachings. But mantra or breath without then expanding, so you could use the mantra, but then at some point you got to let go of the mantra and come into that embodied awareness. Not just ignoring my mind or filling the mind with words, with phrases, with mantras, but now I'm just going to observe my mind. And that's when it shifts from concentration to mindfulness. What's my mind up to in its natural state? Thoughts are arising and passing. Meditation, this kind of meditation, Buddhist meditation, is not about just quieting your mind. It's about changing your relationship to your mind in its natural state. So concentration helps you see more clearly, planning and remembering and all of this fear-based, fear-fueled worrying about the future and regretting the past and whatever your mind is up to. The more concentrated or the gathered attention that the mantra does or the breath awareness does allows us to then relate to the mind in a different way, see it more clearly. So you can use mantra instead of the breath if you want to, but then at some point let go of it and expand to the rest of the investigation of what's my heart doing, what's my mind doing, what are the feeling tones. Because if you're just doing mantra the whole time, you'll never quite get to the investigation of impermanence and clinging and aversion and self-centeredness that is happening, because we'll just be ignoring it by replacing it with the mantra. So it's a good initial practice, and then to be relinquished and then open to the mindfulness practice. Does that make sense to everybody? It's useful, but not by itself from a Buddhist perspective. It won't get you the kind of liberation that you want. It won't get you the kind of freedom from clinging and aversion and self-centeredness that causes our suffering. It'll just give you a nice meditative concentration experience. And a lot of people stop there, or a lot of people just use the breath all of the time because it feels good to ignore the mind. You get relief from the suffering that the mind creates by doing the mantra or just focusing on the breath. But it doesn't create compassion. It doesn't create non-identification, non-attachment, which is what we really need in order to have a transformation, in order to be more awake to reality, not just a meditation that is a temporary avoidance, but an actual change in our relationship to things. So the Buddha taught concentration, but also many times criticized it as a path in itself. That it's useful, it's a useful part of our path, but it's not the way to enlightenment. It won't get you free. It'll get you concentrated, and then mindfulness will get you free. So, welcome. So I'll reflect a little bit on this retreat I just came back from. I had a week of silent meditation retreat, and in a Buddhist monastery in England, in this tradition, that Ajahn Chah, Thai forest tradition that I've been practicing with for a little over 3 decades, a little over 30 years. And I sat with a monk that I know a little bit, but he's not one of my main teachers. My main teacher was taking the year off, is on sabbatical. Ajahn Amaro who I usually go on retreat with every year, took the year off. And so, and I feel committed to going and sitting a retreat each year. So I was like, okay, well, my guy's taking the year off, I'll go and sit with one of the junior monks. And I enjoyed it. I had a good retreat, good as in beneficial. One of the first things he said when he was starting the retreat, he said, it's really a privilege to get to sit a retreat. And he was kind of reflecting, he said for himself, he felt like practicing the Dharma and particularly getting to take a week away from our lives, and that it feels like such a privilege. And I could relate to that. There was a part of me that was like, yeah, but very much in a privileged incarnation situation where I could fly to another country and go and, kind of leave my community and leave my family and have childcare and have the money for travel. And, I could relate to that. And that also, just the opportunity to practice for all of those days. There's a part of me that related to privilege, but then there's also a part of me that felt like practicing the Dharma definitely didn't feel like a privilege in the beginning. Like these days I can relate to it. It does feel sort of like a privilege, but I didn't come to the Dharma, didn't feel like a privilege. It felt like desperation. It didn't feel like, oh yeah, like life's good, but what a privilege to develop wisdom. It felt like I'm drowning, I'm suffering, I'm looking for some hope. And it didn't feel like a privilege at all. It felt like a lifeline to survival. Like I'm not going to make it without a major shift in my relationship to my mind, without a major shift in my relationship to pleasure and pain, and for me, addiction, and so it didn't feel like a privilege to meditate. It felt like a necessity, like the kind of only hope that I had to make it through, a very painful time in my early life when I started meditating. But now I very much feel like, yeah, what a privilege to get to practice. And something about, I had a lot of reflections on retreat around like, okay, privilege, but also, I don't know, almost, there's this mysterious part. I can't quite put my finger on it. I guess in Buddhism we would use some kind of explanation of like the karma of continuing to practice. So for me, 37 years ago, I was desperate enough to start meditating. But a lot of people are desperate enough to try meditation at some point. And some people come out of I know for me, like I kind of project that. Some of us come out of desperation. Some people come out of intellectual curiosity. And, like this monk that I was sitting with talked about how he didn't ordain until he was about 40 years old. And before that, he had this very successful life. He was a professional ballet dancer, and he was in the ballet in London. And he became, after he retired from ballet, he became one of the teachers of the ballet. And he said, I came from this place of not desperation, but like, privilege and success and I found that the emptiness of success led me to wanting something more. I got everything I wanted. I forget who it was. Somebody said, there's nothing more disappointing in life than getting everything you want. If you haven't got everything you want, you can keep that delusion of like, I would be really happy if I were a successful ballet dancer. If you're not, but then you get it and you're like, fuck, it didn't work. And so he was coming from that place of like, I got there and it didn't work. The kind of happiness, the contentment, the peace that I was looking for wasn't found in success, wasn't found in material. A couple of years ago, I took a group to Thailand and connected this other monastery in Thailand that's connected. And the abbot at that time was somebody who had inherited billions of dollars and came from a very wealthy family and had walked away from his several billion, I think it was like $3 billion inheritance to be a monk because he just knew. He saw the suffering of his family. He saw the unhappiness of success and, went and got his education and was expected to take over the, family billions and said, I don't want any of it. I want happiness. I want freedom. And I know that money doesn't work. I know that material things don't provide the kind of well-being that I want in my life. And walked away from billions and became a monk. And he was a great teacher, and it was really interesting to find that out about, kind of the different ways that people find themselves to the Dharma. And my experience, and I think, a lot of our community is like the suffering of addiction that brought us to the desperation to be like, I better do something. And there's some hope here. There's a path here. There's a transformative way to train the mind to get some freedom. So privilege, maybe it is a privilege. And then that reflection that I sometimes have about myself and seeing all of the, years of so many people starting and not following through and not totally clear about what that is, the karma of falling in love with the Dharma. So many people, like you read the books and you just kind of like, most of us, we're like, this shit makes so much sense. The Buddha is so fucking cool. And you mean it's possible to not suffer? I want that. It's possible to have compassion. I want that. It's possible to not be so identified with the self-centered tendency of the human mind. That sounds good. I want that. And then you start meditating, and most people give up after, some time. Not that many people follow through long term. And I'm not sure exactly what that is about, other than that it's difficult. And it's seems to be counter-instinctual to, our instincts are chase pleasure and avoid pain. And then we come to this practice that's like, no, sit there with sore knees. So learn how to be uncomfortable. It's like not a great sales pitch of like, yes, I will teach you how to be in pain. There's no promise of like, yeah, and you'll feel bliss and joy all of the time. It's like, no, you'll have compassion for pain and you'll learn how to deal with it. And you'll have non-attachment to pleasure, and you'll see through the material and sensual kind of emptiness of things, that nothing works, right? It's not a great, and I think a lot of people end up kind of feeling like, well, I always think of that scene in the first Matrix. I think most people are probably familiar with it, where there's that one guy who's like, I know it's all delusion in the Matrix, but I just want to believe. I just would rather be in the delusion of sense pleasures, even if it's a fucking computer program, simulation, whatever it is, than be free out here in the, kind of reality that's not that pleasant. Reality is not that pleasant. Delusion of, like, what was it, the woman in the red dress and the steak dinner or whatever he wanted to have. I'd rather just plug back in than live out here and seeing clearly, because it's kind of grim what we see, some of it. Seeing all of the suffering in the world, seeing all of the oppression, all of the ignorance, the constant craving that fuels humanity. Not such good news. So my other reflection on retreat, maybe connected to privilege, was around the preciousness of the Dharma, and the opening topic that I gave to you around making it a priority and kind of keeping it a priority in my life and in our lives. I thought of, like, the Dharma as kind of an oasis, of kind of being like kind of out in the desert, lost, and then you kind of come upon this oasis where there's water, and it's like kind of dying of thirst, and here's something that actually quenches the thirst. And that along the kind of path, there's all of these mirages, so many mirages in life that sort of promise satisfaction. The material mirage that says, hey, if you get stuff, you'll be happy. And then you get the stuff and you're like, no, fucking didn't work. If you get the right relationship, then you'll be happy. Oh, no, didn't work. If you get the right sense pleasures, the right, if you're comfortable, no, comfortable didn't work. All of those mirages, and then finding the Dharma, which is not a mirage, it's a tangible path. It is a thirst-quenching, satisfying, practical, applicable way of training the mind, and way of life, and way of being, and of interacting with the world. And it's like, oh, here's something, wasteland of samsara, the desert of existence. And I was reflecting on how in my early life, I felt like coming to meditation groups and going to retreat was like I needed to go to the oasis to get. And I'd go on retreat and I'd feel like, okay, that was good. And now, but I don't really know how to apply it in my whole life. And I felt like I had to go to the meditation group, or I had to go to the teacher or the monastery or the retreat in order to get filled up. And that at some point, and this is really the Buddha's teaching, at some point we realize that actually, yes, there is that kind of place that you go to learn it. You get the instructions, you read the books, you go to the retreats or the monasteries or whatever. But then at some point you realize, actually, it's not just there. I can take this with me. I can fill up my canteen. I don't have to only go to the oasis to drink. I can take this with me and I can live this. Now, I still want to come back and refill and visit and reconnect with the in my case, these monks in this monastery and this tradition, or the groups or the teachers or the books or whatever it is that gives us that inspiration, that gives us that support, that guidance, that spiritual sustenance. But that ultimately the Buddha was quite clear about the teachings being something to live, something to embody, something to take into every aspect of our life, not about just getting good at meditation or getting good at being in silence, but becoming kind and becoming loving and becoming, that sort of question about that inner voice of transformation, so that we're not so critical, that we actually train the mind to be kind and loving and naturally. Maybe some people already have a kind inner voice. Maybe you're already friendly to yourselves. For a lot of us, it takes a lot of training of the mind to develop that kind of loving kindness attitude, that kind of friendly and patient and caring intention. But then when you develop it and you continue to, it actually becomes the norm. You know, like I can remember how unkind I was to myself for the first half of my life, but it's not my reality anymore. I don't live with that kind of inner voice. I mean, Mara will still come through occasionally. I was reflecting at one point that I used to feel, and I don't know, I think I probably heard this in some recovery meeting, of that like the mind is a bad neighborhood and you shouldn't go there alone. You know, like you should kind of check in with other people. Don't believe your mind because it's not trustworthy. Make sure that you're checking in with your sponsor and your friends and all that stuff. But I feel like there's something about long-term meditation practice that actually turns the mind into not a bad neighborhood. To actually, it transforms the inner environment where I don't live in a bad neighborhood anymore. I did, but after some decades of meditation, unfortunately, it's not like, oh, I've been meditating for 3 months and now my mind is kind, or even 3 years, or for some people, even 10, or it takes many years often to really develop. And maybe we're neuroscience-wise developing different neuropathways that are more friendly, that are more kind, that are more wise, that are more compassionate. And that takes a long time to do. But that once we do it, everywhere and everything is an opportunity, rather than just when we're at the monastery or just when we're at the meditation group or just when we're on the retreat. Everything, whether we're driving down the street or we're at work or we're at home or whatever we're doing, it's an opportunity for mindfulness. And it's the mindfulness that we've practiced where we're checking in like we were in the meditation tonight. What's happening right now and how does it feel? And how am I responding to it? And that intentional response of, I want to be friendly towards this unpleasant situation. I want to be kind and tolerant and compassionate. And I'm learning to do that. We learn to do that through meditation. And then when we've really learned to do that, then we bring it into every aspect of our life. And we do that, my sense is that happens through making the Dharma a priority. And, like I said in the beginning, my sense is we only have so much energy. And it's so easy for us to feel like, well, I'm so busy. My life is so full. And it's true, probably. Probably you have a busy life, full life, lots of responsibilities, and even just working full time. If you work full time, it's a fucking lot, 40 hours a week, and then tired. And then I need to rest. And then the weekend, like only a couple days off, or, depending on what sort of lifestyle you live and how gainfully employed you are, and where's the time for the meditation and for the, not just meditation, service, engagement, generosity, study. People that work full time in our kind of modern American capitalist system that maybe only have 2 weeks a year off, and then saying like, shit, am I going to use my 2-week vacation to go on a retreat? Is it that kind of priority? Is the Dharma, is my awakening, is my happiness? And maybe this is, I don't know, a little bit too much, but I tend to see it as kind of like, is my happiness a priority? Is my well-being a priority? Because it's easy to be like, oh, fuck it, I'm going to go on vacation. I'm not going to go on a retreat. Retreats are hard work. Being this retreat that I was on, when you practice with the monks, you don't get dinner. I'm going to go and have no dinner for a week? Because their precepts are you can only eat before noon, from sunrise to midday. And so they give you a little breakfast and they give you a little lunch and then no dinner. And you're kind of like, oh man, is the Dharma a priority enough to have some renunciation and practice some simplicity and not eat, the delicious tacos that I want to eat at 9 p.m. and have a whole, kind of week of that. So just a reflection and an encouragement, and each of us get to find our own way. What kind of, how much of a priority is it in my life, and am I making it as important as I think it is? Because I feel like here's an interesting thing of like looking at how much faith you have in the Dharma. For those of you that have been studying, you've read the books, you've heard the talks. How much, scale of 1 to 10, how much does Buddhism make sense to you, and kind of how much faith is maybe a dirty word to some of us, but confidence. How much confidence, 1 to 10, and that so many people would be like, I'm inspired. I feel confident in the path. Like I want to be free from suffering. I want to wake up. I'm very confident in the Buddha. It makes sense. This is practical. This isn't mystical. This is actually tangible things that we can do to become less attached and more compassionate and less identified, less self-centered. And so I think a lot of people be like, I'm at a 9 or a 10, like I'm inspired after a book or a Dharma talk or a retreat or whatever. And then we have to look at, okay, but where's my action from 1 to 10? And I see this in my own life, where often like I'm quite confident in the Buddha and Buddhism and in the path. I feel very little doubt for me at this point, where like I know this shit works. But then I look at my prime and be like, fuck, I'm only at like a 5. I'm not sitting as long as I used to sit, and I'm not putting the effort in to match my confidence, my faith. And then kind of looking at, okay, what am I making a priority over myself, over my happiness? Sense pleasures, material things, other people? Just wanted to share some reflections about the retreat and making practice a priority. And for me, making retreat a priority, I really feel like it's a necessary part of revisiting the oasis and getting that time each year to be in silence and to sit with and see what comes up, more than just the 30 or 45 minute or hour silence during your daily meditation practice, to actually get several days of being in silence without any entertainment or any reading or anything, and just being in the silence and see, okay, what's happening in my heart and my mind now, this year that I'm on retreat. Not the retreat that I did 10 years ago, but this year, this point. So I'm going to leave it there. We have a few minutes if there's any questions or clarifications, or anybody would like to say anything. John, go ahead.
This brought some reflection about the progress and like the path of my own spiritual endeavors, and I don't know that I would have ever seriously like stuck with sitting for maybe more than I tried to, then kind of being prompted by the fact that like I was drinking in a way that was destroying my life, right? And that this was kind of a promise tool, and being exposed to refuge recovery. But now, like several years into a practice that has actually kind of really broadened out into like a whole, like encompassing like a whole spectrum of Buddhist thought, including like precepts and like kind of the whole 9 yards. I feel like, and also being demonstrated the results, which were like just orders of magnitude beyond what I ever expected would be possible for me at the outset. It feels like at this point that for me personally, the actual formal sitting that I do on a daily basis, right, is part of my routine. Like it's almost more of like a placeholder. It's not actually like the thing that I look to in like my spiritual practice anymore to actually make any like real headway. And I feel like for me personally, like that has came about to some degree initially just by sitting here on a cushion, but it's come about more and more through like trying to bring that cultivate like that skill that we cultivate on the cushion, which is kind of like that warm, compassionate, gentle awareness of like what is my mind telling me to do, and like, is that right, or like how do I feel about that? Is it even like gonna bring about what I actually want, you know?
Yeah.
And being able to bring that like in every other moment that's actually not on the cushion, right? And like the reality is it's shaped, it's done not just like giving me a degree of control over substances or whatever, like it's had effects on like relationships, like family, like the way that I think and engage about like, what I throw away, what I put in my body, like how I, like what I do with my body every day, and like how I treat and like, even, perceive privately other people. And so like that's been critically important to like, be able to transition that into everyday life. But I do find that like it's really rare that I actually hear any like formal instruction on like how to actually make that transition or bring that into day to day. And I'm wondering if like that's actually something you've ever addressed or taught, or like if you have recommendations for people that wanted to try to like push that.
Could you hear some of it at home? He's pretty close to me, but I know it's hard to hear them. The core of the question was like the integration of the Dharma into everyday life and into every aspect of our life, with the kind of comment, which is true, like there's a lot of really specific instructions of how to meditate, but then how do we do the rest of it? And when we look at the Eightfold Path, the sitting meditation is two of the factors of the Eightfold Path. And then so much of the rest of our life is relational, and it's about the precepts, the right action, right? It's addressed in the right action, right speech. So much of the karma that we're creating is in how we relate and communicate, how we listen, how we talk, kind of what kind of speech to avoid, dishonesty and harsh speech and such. So it's there in the Eightfold Path for the most part, of kind of looking at how you're behaving and how you're communicating, and bringing the mindfulness into our speech and into our actions and into livelihood. Even the Buddha even brought, what are you doing for your relationship to money? How you earning money? That's going to be a central part of your life. That's part of your spiritual path. It's on the Eightfold Path, right? Wise livelihood, right livelihood. So I always feel like the Buddha did a good job. Buddhism does a good job of saying like, this is your whole life. It's how you communicate. It's how you behave. It's how you train your mind. It's what you, renounce. It's the precepts. That it's everything. It's community. It's taking refuge in wise relationships, who we surround ourselves with, and that importance of kind of the three tiers in Sangha of, the people that we look up to, our teachers, our benefactors, our mentors, the people who are our peers that we develop friendships and connections with, and then the people that are coming in after us that we be of service to and that we help and guide and support. All three of those kind of are necessary parts of the relational aspect of the Dharma. So my sense is that it's mostly there in the Eightfold Path. I don't know if there's something specific. It also depends on what teachers you're listening to and what, I love the monks. But at some point, I kind of felt like, I need to learn about sex and money. And these guys don't know shit about sex and money. I mean, they do, because it's not like they were, but they've renounced sex and money. And so I felt like I needed to look at more householder teachers of like, okay, how are you bringing this into parenting? How are you bringing this into, your profession? How are you? And so I like having both householder, non-celibate teachers, and also having, monastics who are, full-time professional Buddhists and, kind of get to dedicate all of their time to practice and study. And you can learn so much from them, but not much about sex, not much about money, not much about engaging in family life. So I hope that was helpful. Yeah. we'll leave it there for tonight. I don't know if I have any announcements. Dana is the way that we ask for support. Dana is a Buddhist word that means giving, freely offering. Dana is a meaning an offering. And so Against the Stream is a non-profit organization that is entirely supported by the offerings that you give, the people who come, the Sangha, the people who come to, that join us here offer. So obviously we're not part of a kind of capitalist free-for-service monetization of spirituality. We don't do that here. I teach for free. I offer my experience and my reflections, and then you get to choose what you give. A lot of places won't even do a suggested donation. But if you want a ballpark, think about what you pay for a yoga class, think about what you pay for a movie, think about what so $20, $25 if you can afford it, more if you feel that you have the ability to give more. Like I said earlier, this class has been happening for over 20 years, and the only reason that it continues is because people before you have been generous. And then the donations that you are generous with, that you give, allow us to continue to be here and pay the rent and the employees and the insurance and everything that it takes to run a meditation center. And then hopefully if there's a little left over, I can buy some tacos. So please be generous and consider becoming a monthly supporter. It's nice to give when you come to class or you drop in for the Zoom. But it's also very nice to just say, hey, I want to support Against the Stream with a monthly donation rather than, kind of fee for service, kind of getting out of that I'm donating because I'm here and trying to get into the state of like, I'm donating because I want this thing to exist and to continue to be of support to anybody who wants to drop in without, a fee for dropping in. It's just here, it's just available. So please be generous. George has a announcement.
Hi friends, we started a little group called Off the Cushion. Noah talked about being of service and engagement, and we're trying to figure out ways to take our practice off the cushion, bring it out into the real world. The group, we did a feed-in 1 month. We went to some of the King's Day protests as a group, which was really cool. We're doing a sock drive. If you are at the Dollar Tree and you buy a pair of socks to donate to those in need, we have a box in the corner. It's filling up. Thank you to everybody for bringing those in. Once it's filled up, we'll donate it to one of the shelters or one of the local groups, and they can hand them out. We also last month did a flyer for if ICE stops you in public. It's bilingual. There's a box of them. It's actually getting thin, but there's a lot left. Take a few home with you, pass them out if you know anybody. A few of us went and stapled them to all the telephone poles in our neighborhood and left them at the liquor store here. And it's just a way to try to help other people. We meet once a month. That's going to be July 30th here at 7:30. Come talk to me after if you're interested in getting involved. If you have any causes or interests or anything to kind of get a group together and go get busy and go get active, come talk to me. And we have a WhatsApp group. I could add you to the list after later tonight. Come find me afterwards. Thank you.
Lastly, I'm taking a group to Sri Lanka in November. There's a few spots left if you are interested if you have the financial privilege to be able to travel Southeast Asia. Sri Lanka is one of the oldest Buddhist countries in existence. Buddhism went from India to Sri Lanka in the early days of Buddhism. And then, India sort of did away with Buddhism for the most part, but there's been an ongoing Sri Lankan Buddhist community for 2,500 years, something like that. And so we're going to go, we're going to have some retreat time, we're going to have some beach time. There's really good beach and good surf in Sri Lanka. So we got a few days at a good surf break where we're going to kind of meditate and surf and hang out at the beach. And then we're going to go on retreat in the jungle. We have a night at an elephant sanctuary, and we're going to this ancient Bodhi tree and the ruins of Buddhist temples. And so it's kind of retreat slash pilgrimage slash vacation with the homies that meditate. And you're all invited. If you can afford it and you have the time, it's November 10th through 24th. And the information's on Against the Stream website, againstthestream.com. So we'll leave it there for tonight, and offering the merit from our practice outward in all directions. May the blessings, the goodness, the good karma of our positive intentions be shared with each other and shared outward in all directions with all living beings. May each one of us get as free as possible in this lifetime, and together may we create a positive change on this planet. See you next week.